You're listening to Passion Project, and I'm your host, Kat Margulis. Jamelle Lindo is an emotional intelligence coach, trainer, and speaker specializing in leadership with 11 years of professional experience in learning and development. Over the course of the past decade, Jamelle has coached, trained, and spoken to thousands of people across Canada through a variety of conferences, corporate workshops, and coaching sessions. He is also the founder of the Self-Architect Program, which is an experiential process for closing the gap between who you are now and who you need to be in order to deliver on your personal and professional goals. Jamelle, thank you so much for being the first guest on my show and being so gracious and willing to go on this journey with me. I promise I'm going to let you speak, but I just want to give everybody a little bit of background on how we came together. Jamelle and I met at an event a short while back, and I noticed him right away, which is unusual for me because I don't notice much. And, then partway through the event, we had a chance to introduce ourselves, and I was totally awestruck. I mean, you just had such a great presence and clean, clear, positive energy. And I was just like, I need to know you. And I'm pretty shy and I don't approach people out of the blue, but I had to meet you. I just had to. I was so compelled. And I interrupted the conversation you were having. And I was like, we just need to exchange contact info and we need to talk. And I don't even know what we're going to talk about. And you were like totally okay with that. So thank you for not thinking I was a weirdo. Yeah. And then fast forward a few days and we finally had that call and I had to cut you off. I was like, everybody has to hear your voice. I have to record this. And you're like, do you have equipment? And I was like, I don't. And you said, well, I have some equipment, but what are you going to do with it? And I said, I guess I'll podcast it. I just need to create a podcast so I can share you with the world. So here we are today. So thank you for being here.
More than welcome.
And taking this leap of faith with me. So why don't we start with you just telling everybody a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am an emotional intelligence coach. And it sounds very sophisticated and it sounds very complicated, but it's actually very simple. And what I do is I support people in closing the gap between who they are now and who they need to be to deliver on their personal and professional goals using emotional intelligence. Now, first question is, well, what is emotional intelligence? And basically, it's about being smart with emotions. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like this crazy complex thing, but really it's not. Mm-hmm. And it's not a part of the conversation in our culture today. So what we end up having is so many people whose emotions get in the way of what it is they're looking to do, whether it's building an effective relationship, whether it's delivering on your entrepreneurial dream, whether it's living out your passion. We all have emotions sometimes that will work against us in that process. So really, my job is to make sure that that never happens.
Yeah, amazing. So during our call last week, I asked a question and you were so excited to answer. And that was just the moment I was like, okay, gotta take this off. We gotta stop the call. We gotta get a recorder. And I'm so sorry about that, but I'm gonna give you another chance. Okay. And the thing that really amazes me is just how centered you are. And my son had a teacher last year and he was just so calm and I was just such a mess around him. It was just like, it was just the juxtaposition of his calm to my, neuroses. And so I'm always like awestruck by people like you that, the world is so fast paced and the world is so crazy. And then we have Jamelle and he's standing in the middle and he's Zen and Buddha, like nothing is wrong. And so I always wonder, like, where do you come from? Like, are you from outer space or, do you have just like the most blessed parents or, were you born like this or did you work at it?
I think it's a little bit of all of those things, actually. Yeah. So I had a very religious upbringing, actually. So my parents got divorced when I was 2. I lived with my mom, so grew up in a single parent household. And my mom is super religious. Like she's Jamaican, like old school Jamaican, and she's from that whole, you know what I mean? Like anybody who's Jamaican who's listening to this will totally be able to relate. Like it's very stringent, it's very strict, it's very to the book, it's all those things, right? Yeah. And so my mom made a lifestyle out of church. Mm-hmm. And I mean, like as a kid, I was in church like Monday, Tuesday, like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and twice on Sunday, you know what I mean? So I was like bombarded with church. Yeah. And I loved the experience there. It gave me like a strong sense of community, gave me my first introduction to like morals and values and all these kinds of things. But I always felt like it didn't answer the real questions. Mm-hmm. And when I would ask things that almost seemed like things you probably shouldn't ask someone at church, I felt like I was getting run-of-the-mill answers, or answers that were being spoon-fed to them, and so they were just spoon-feeding them to me. There was something there that was kind of left unfulfilled. So my journey for the truth still continued beyond religion, which was the first thing that was given to me. And so I think it all kind of came together years later when I was in high school. And I was never a big student. I was never like much into, you know, academia and reading and studying. And it just wasn't my thing, wasn't my jam, you know? But I remember after graduating, shortly after that, I suddenly started to get this inclination to read something. And it wasn't too long until I ran into a friend at work and he was like, Jamelle, you have to read this book. Like, please read this book. And I'm like, okay, hold on, wait. Pause, time out. And this guy was not animated to begin with, right? And he was so explosive in his energy. He said, okay, calm down. What is the book? Why do I have to read it? So he said, Jamelle, the book is Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. And I said, okay, let me go check that out. So I picked up the book, went home, I read it, and I was glued. I could not stop reading. And then I got to this one line in the book that literally changed my whole life and the whole course of my life, and is the reason why I'm here with you right now, as well as the reason why I do what I do today. And the line that I read was, "You are not your thoughts." And so it hit me like a ton of bricks. I'd never heard that before. I'd gone to school. I'd been around church. I'd had mentors. I had teachers. No one ever brought forward this idea that maybe my identity was not what I was thinking. Now, lucky for me, that was great news, because what I was thinking was negative. It was all bad, right? It was like, it was bad stuff about myself. It was bad stuff about the world, about who I believed myself to be. Like, I was actually a very negative thinker at the time. And the notion that maybe my identity wasn't wrapped up in my thinking process was amazing.
Liberating.
Yeah, it was liberating. And so in that moment, I was almost pulled into this perspective where I could observe my thinking pattern for the first time, but not be pulled into it. It was a very strange thing. And what I was looking at was all these bad stories about who I was as a person. You know, you're not good enough. You're not intelligent enough. You're not going to be able to accomplish anything. There's no hope for you. The world is working against you. Nobody likes you. They were just using you, and it was feeding in to all these negative beliefs.
And it's all in your head.
And it's all in my head, and insecurities and all these kinds of things. And I couldn't believe the way that I was talking to myself. You know what I mean? And I've said to other people too, you know, if someone else ever spoke to you the way that you spoke to yourself, you'd get them out of your life. And that's the case for most of us, and this is what I came to realize. And what was crazy was the stories that I was telling myself, those stories were attached to emotions that I was feeling, and I saw that link for the first time.
You're getting worked up over nothing, right?
Exactly. And then those emotions were informing my actions. And my actions were informing the kind of relationships that I had, the successes that I was seeing, or the lack thereof, which at the time was really more of the lack thereof. And for the first time, I saw how my external world and the things that I was experiencing was connected to who I was being as a person. And that was the most marvelous revelation ever, you know? And so when I learned that, I was like, I gotta tell the world. And that's what I did. I ran out and I told my friends, and I told my mom, and I told my brother, and I told everybody, until they said, Jamelle, shut the hell up. You know what I mean? And it got to this point where I was feeling a bit isolated because I was trying to impose this belief system onto other people, which, as we know, is not a very pleasant experience to have. And so I pulled back. And I said, Jamelle, if there's something real here, if there's something true here, live it yourself. Become the example. And if, in fact, there is something real that is here, eventually you'll exude it. And then people will ask, which is kind of funny because that's how we met, right? So it's kind of crazy, right?
It's just like...
But anyways, it was actually 10 years before someone finally said, I'll never forget, I was at the lunchroom at work.
You're just being so patient waiting.
Yeah, I was just waiting. And someone came up to me, like, and they're like, Jamelle, you know, there seems to be like this natural calmness about you, and this sense of control and positivity. Like, you're always laughing. I hear you laughing all the way down the hall. Like, what gives? And I'm like, I'm glad you asked. I have been waiting for this moment. And so I shared a bit, and the more I shared, the more people listened, and it all eventually snowballed into where I am right now, which is the coaching, the speaking, the training, personal, professional, leadership, entrepreneurship, all of it.
Amazing. Everyone has a passion, something that lights them up. and then fear, life, paying the bills, surviving, it just pounds it out of them. And then they have like a midlife crisis, or they, keep arriving at dead ends and they realize they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, and that's the problem, if they're lucky. I love reading about people who make things happen and follow their dreams and make them come true. I find following my own passion project and writing my book has been such a test of endurance and perseverance that the thing that gets me through is reading about how other people got through theirs and how they overcome blocks. They write a book, they finish the book, they write another book, they start a company, they fail, they keep trying, they keep working at it, and eventually they succeed. And that's why I wanted to start this podcast to show, the journey of the people that we admire. They make it look easy, but it's not. Your job is to help people get over themselves, to help them get past these blocks and these setbacks so they can do everything they want to do and be everything they want to be. Are we all the same? Are we all banging our heads up against the same wall?
That's such a great question. There's one thing that I want to adjust in there. And you say that my job is to help people get over themselves, but really, my job is to help people get into themselves and to explore themselves and to understand what's important for them. In today's day and age, that's not a part of the conversation. What is a part of the conversation is your obligation, who you need to be for either the world, for society, to be labeled as a success. And most people are oriented to chase the things that are obligations imposed onto them from the outside world. These are external things. And in that chase, when we finally arrive, somehow we're not fulfilled.
Yeah.
Well, why are we not fulfilled? Well, we missed that we must first start with self-awareness and understanding who it is that we are.
Yeah.
And when we know who we are and we can connect to the ideals that truly drive and motivate us, then we can start living inside out.
Yeah.
Instead of outside in. And the inside out is knowing who I am, knowing what these ideals are, and then living into them through whatever vehicle that may be.
Yeah.
And it could be entrepreneurship, it could be being a mother, it could be being a leader, it could be a 9-to-5 job or starting your own business. But the vehicle is not what's relevant. What's relevant is that it allows you to express something that you've already identified as something that is inherently important and key for you as a person. And that's how you get to a space of fulfillment. So it's about changing the conversation and making it around self-awareness instead of particular outcomes in life.
Right.
And making it about the process.
Yeah.
And so in doing so, people are now focused on who they're being and how they're expressing who they're being and allowing that to define what success means.
Yeah.
And that's the change that most of us have to go through.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge that most of us have in this process.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything more crushing than the idea I can't. That just kills me. And so many people feel that way. In my case, I usually feel I can. I have a real can-do attitude until I'm in the thick of it and I run out of steam and the hill looms large and I can't see the light at the end of the tunnel and I'm just so tired and I'm just like, what am I doing here? I totally can't. How do you help people past that? How do you get yourself past that? How do you show them I can and you can too?
Yeah, absolutely. And the number one thing there I would say is to be fully responsible for your experience and how you're showing up in that moment. And so the moment that you're not blaming and saying, well, I can't because of this or I can't because of that and this person and that person, the moment that you say, well, that mentality that says that I can't is within me. And I have control over that. That's the moment that you begin to become empowered. And so you got to shift from the blame game to the responsibility game, to the ownership game. And so that's really step number one.
Yeah.
Once you've taken full ownership for yourself and your life and the way that you're showing up, now you can start to play a bigger game. The bigger game is being aware of how you're showing up moment to moment.
Yeah.
And seeing yourself in all of your messiness.
Yeah.
Right? And being okay with seeing that, even though it's not exactly what you want, but it's important to see it in its entirety. It's important to be clear about how you're showing up right now. Because once you see the reality of who you are right now, that opens up the gateway to create a new reality of who you would like to be instead. And that is where we begin to now close the gap. A really simple thing that you can do, some really simple questions you can use as tools are to stop and to just ask yourself in a challenging moment, what am I feeling in this moment? What am I being? What are the stories that I'm telling myself right now? how are they contributing to my actions?
Mhm.
And once you get a feel for that, then you can say, well, what action would I prefer to take?
Yeah.
Why would I prefer to take that action? How is that tied to who I genuinely want to be? And it's through these questions that you build a sense of awareness.
Yeah.
And then now through the contrast, you have choice.
Yeah.
And through that choice, you have freedom.
I love
So
that.
you start with an idea of becoming self-aware. That gives you now the potential
Mhm.
to choose.
Uh-huh.
And the potential to choose is what leads you to liberation.
Amazing. Amazing. I could go on forever with you.
Yeah. I could go on
Maybe
forever.
we'll do more.
Yeah.
We'll have like a whole season's worth of Jamelle tape.
I'm cool with that.
But before I let you off today, is there anything else that you'd like to, one more thing that you would like to leave with the people listening today?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the thing that I would say is this, and this is going to sound a little bit morbid, so forgive me for that, but I
Yeah.
want for everybody to know explicitly that you're going to die,
Yeah.
okay? Now, why am I saying this?
Yeah.
I'm saying this because when you become very aware of the fact that your life ends,
Yeah.
that you're not here forever, it places so much more value on this moment,
Yeah.
right? And no matter what, even though you're going to die, you're only going to die one time. You're alive the rest of the time. You know what I mean?
That's
Is that
awesome.
not good news?
That's great.
It only happens once, and it's super
Silver
quick.
linings.
It's super quick, right? But the experience leading up to that is really what this is all about. And I want for everybody who's listening right now to know that you living into the greatest expression of who you are is your birthright. And you absolutely deserve to be in the experience of everything that you were meant to be.
Uh-huh.
That is why you came here, and
Yeah.
you will never be fulfilled until you do that.
Yeah.
And I want for you to know that you deserve that,
Yeah.
and that you absolutely can do that. And all that you need to do is take responsibility,
Yeah.
take ownership, and take action.
Tears. Thank you so much. I thank you so much for everything. Thank you for being here today and sharing your wonderful perspective on
welcome.
goals and setbacks and just life in general. I hope our paths cross many times over. All the best to you. And thanks to the listeners at home or wherever you are for tuning into Passion Project. I hope you're inspired and motivated to make yours happen. This is Kat Margulis signing off for now. Until next time. Jamelle, thank you so much for being on the show. And those words are so powerful. I have to say them again. You living into the greatest expression of who you are is your birthright. Take that in, you guys. Isn't that just powerful? And then do what Jamelle says. Take responsibility, take ownership, take action. You deserve it. Bye for now, and stay tuned because we got lots more for you.